Good morning. It's my pleasure to call this meeting of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to order. Today is Friday, September 27th, 2019. The time is 9:30 a.m. You'll notice we have a full dais this morning. So Commissioner Janica, I'm pleased to welcome you. And of course, we're also joined by Commissioner Emily Lindley and our General Counsel, Mary Smith. I'm John Neerman, and Ms. Smith, I'll ask you to call the first item.
Item number 1 is an application by Ingram Concrete LLC for new air quality permit number 152417L001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in on this item, their presence will be acknowledged or will be noted for the record.
So colleagues, we have several requesters on this item, and we have to decide which of those have both met the procedural requirements in their hearing requests and also demonstrated that they are affected persons entitled to a contested case hearing as an initial matter, and then we can discuss the issues. Several of the requests were insufficient, either because the requesters failed to articulate how they might be affected different from the general public. Some lived far enough away from the proposed facility that they could not be affected different from the general public. Some failed to identify their location, which is a procedural defect, and we have to deny all of those requests. 8 of the requesters, in my view, met the procedural requirements and made the appropriate showing that they are, in fact, affected persons. And I thought what I'd do is list those off, and I'll try to go slowly so you can cross-reference to your own lists. Okay, so I have Hubert Ralph Hawkins, James Randy Isham, Melody Isham, Shara Blair Kucera, Ronald Meisner, Ocean Canyon Properties, Trace Rios LLC, DBA Trace Rios Resort, and the City of Glen Rose. So I'm going to suggest that we grant those requests. I did have one open question as well as to Patricia Meisner. She had identified her location in her request, so I think she met the procedural requirement, but the way she did that still left some questions in my mind about where she was situated in relation to the facility. And so I would propose that we refer her request to SOA for an effectiveness determination.
I would agree with that determination, to refer her for effectiveness as well.
Okay, so you're good with the parties? Commissioner Janica? Great.
Yeah.
So let's turn to the issues, and I would refer the following, and again, I'll try to go slow so you can cross-reference against what you might have concluded. First is whether the draft permit is protective of the health and safety of the requesters, as well as their families, customers, employees, and other representatives, whether it is protective of the plants, animals, wildlife, and other sensitive receptors in the vicinity of the proposed facility, whether it is protective with respect to nuisance dust, also whether the air modeling was proper and resulted in appropriate permit limitations, whether public notice was adequate, whether the draft permit contains adequate monitoring and record-keeping requirements, and finally, whether the authorized total annual operating hours is protective of public health.
I would agree with those. I believe that's 7 issues.
Yes.
Likewise, I think that really captures the substantive issues raised.
Great. And then a few other matters. Given the number of parties and issues, I'd suggest we allow the full 180-day hearing duration, include an ADR referral. There's a request for reconsideration pending. I don't think it presents any new information, so I propose that we deny that. And I think that handles all the open issues.
That's all the issues I've noted as well.
Great. I'll entertain a motion.
Would you like to do your first motion?
I certainly would.
Okay.
I move that we grant the hearing request filed by Hubert Ralph Hawkins, James Randy Isham, Melody Isham, Shara Blair Cusera, Ronald Meisner, the City of Glen Rose, and Ocean Canyon Properties Incorporated and Tres Rios LLC, DBA Tres Rios Resort. Further move that we refer the hearing request of Patricia Meisner to SOA for an effectiveness determination, that we deny all other hearing requests and request for reconsideration, and refer the application to SOA for a contested case hearing concerning the following issues. Issue 1, whether the draft permit contains adequate conditions to protect against adverse effects on the health and safety of the requesters and their families, Tres Rios representatives and customers, and the City of Glen Rose's employees working in the immediate vicinity of the facility, including sensitive subgroups. Issue 2, whether the draft permit contains adequate conditions to protect against adverse effects on plants, animals, wildlife, and sensitive receptors within the requesters' respective properties and the City of Glen Rose's ETJ boundaries in the immediate vicinity of the facility. Issue 3, whether the application's air dispersion modeling properly calculated and addressed potential emission sources, emission rates, and background concentrations, resulting in the establishment of appropriate conditions in the draft permit. Issue 4, whether the draft permit contains adequate conditions to protect against nuisance dust conditions affecting the requester's properties during operations. Issue 5, whether the applicant substantially complied with TCQ's public notice requirements for air permit applications to maintain jurisdiction to decide the application. Issue 6, whether the draft permit contains adequate monitoring and record-keeping requirements to demonstrate compliance with its terms. Issue 7, whether the draft permit's allowance of the facilities to operate up to 8,760 hours per year is protective of the health and safety of the requesters and their families. I move that we set the hearing duration for the proceeding at 180 days from the date of the preliminary hearing to the issuance of the proposal for decision, and refer the matter to the Commission's Alternative Dispute Resolution Program to run concurrently with the SOA preliminary hearing scheduling efforts.
Motion has been made.
Seconded.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Item number 2 is an application by Camp Champions, Texas LP for new TCEQ permit number WQ00156430001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those that have signed in on this item will be noted for the record.
So, colleagues, the City of Haven Hills has expressed concern about whether the proposed facility might impact the city's water supplies, and it strikes me as a reasonable request given that their public drinking water wells are in the vicinity of the proposed facility. So I believe the city is entitled to a contested case hearing on 2 issues: whether the draft permit is first protective of the city's wells, and second, whether it's protective of groundwater quality. Commissioner Lindley, what are your thoughts?
I would agree. I think the city met the requirements to be considered a party at a contested case hearing. And the only thing I would add on to that, because I agree with the issues as well, is that since it's 2 issues in one party, we shorten the SOA hearing time frame to 150 days is what I would propose.
Yeah, that works for me.
Sounds
Well-
entirely reasonable to me.
I can,
Commissioner Janica, I think you're cursed with the same microphone that I was
Try
cursed
again.
with
Oh.
for several years.
Yes, I agree.
well, I'll do the motion on this one then, so you don't have to keep sliding over. I move that we grant the hearing request of the City of Highland Haven, that we refer the matter to the Commission's Alternative Dispute Resolution Program to run concurrently with the SOA preliminary hearing scheduling efforts, that we refer the matter to SOA for a contested case hearing on the following issues. A, whether the water quality of the effluent to be used for irrigation under the draft permit is adequately protective of the city's public drinking water wells, and B, whether the geology of the irrigation area could result in subsurface flow of contaminants, particularly bacteria, into the city's public water system, and specify that the maximum duration of the hearing is 150 days from the preliminary hearing to issuance of the proposal for decision.
Commissioner Lindley, council has suggested that we may have misidentified the type of the facility.
Oh,
Um,
what did I? This is for application permit number WQ00156430001.
And we're describing that as a city public water supply.
Oh, did I say that? My gosh.
Right.
Do I need to update the motion?
You want to try it again?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, redo. I move that we grant the City of Highland Haven's hearing request. Is that correct to say? They're the city, right? Okay.
Right.
That we refer the matter to the Commission's Alternative Dispute Resolution Program to run concurrently with the SOA preliminary hearing scheduling efforts. That we refer the matter to SOA for a contested case hearing on the following issues: whether the water quality of the effluent to be used for irrigation under the draft permit is adequately protective of the public drinking water wells, is that fair to say? And whether the geology of the irrigation area could result in subsurface flow of contaminants, particularly bacteria, into a public water supply. And that we specified the maximum duration of the hearing is 150 days from the preliminary hearing to issuance of the proposal for decision. Does that work?
I think our general counsel is good. I'm good. The motion has been made.
I would second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Item number 3 is the consideration of the executive director's findings and recommendations on whether a watermaster should be appointed for the Neches River and Sabine River basins. The executive director's staff is here to present this item.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. My name is Lori Garris, and I am the Watermaster Section Manager within the Water Availability Division. With me today is Brooke McGregor with the Water Availability Division and Robin Smith with the Environmental Law Division. In accordance with Chapter 11, Subchapter G, Sections 11.326G and H of the Texas Water Code, the Executive Director is required to evaluate each river basin that does not have a Watermaster program at least every 5 years to determine whether a Watermaster should be appointed. We are to report the findings and make recommendations to the Commission. During fiscal year 2019, we evaluated the Neches and Sabine River basins. For the evaluation, we held 3 stakeholder meetings throughout the basins. The evaluation was based on the criteria and factors determined by the Commission. The 3 primary criteria evaluated were there any court orders to create a Watermaster? Have any petitions been received requesting a Watermaster? And have senior water rights been threatened, either based on the history of senior calls or water shortages or the number of water right complaints received on an annual basis in each basin? 2 letters were mailed to stakeholders throughout the basins on March 11th, 2019 and May 3rd, 2019. Stakeholder meetings for both basins were held in Beaumont, Lufkin, and Tyler between June 11th and June 13th, 2019. In total, 11 people attended the 3 meetings. The comment period was open from March 11th until June 19th, 2019. There were a combined total for both basins of 25 complaints for fiscal years 2014 through 2018. There were no priority calls received in either of these basins during this same period. These basins have not experienced water shortages during this period, and water use restrictions were implemented in the cities within these basins on a very limited basis. The results of the evaluation indicate that there were no court orders or petitions to create a water master and no repeated history of threatened water rights in these basins. Therefore, the executive director recommends that the commission not move forward on its own motion with the creation of a water master program for the Neches and Sabine River basins at this time. Thank you. We are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. I have none. Commissioner Lindley?
I have no questions. Appreciate the work that went into it.
Commissioner Janica?
Likewise, found the analysis satisfactory.
OPIC?
OPIC agrees with the executive director's recommendation on this item.
And I agree. I think the record, this is a pretty clear one that it's not appropriate to appoint water masters for either of these basins. Colleagues, any
Agreed.
additional comments?
No,
I'll entertain a motion.
I don't think we take action on this one. Or do we?
I guess since we're not appointing a water
Right.
master,
No.
thank you. We do not need to take formal action. So appreciate the work.
You almost gave them a small heart attack. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Item number 4 is consideration for adoption of the second submission of the draft 2018 Texas Integrated Report for Clean Water Act Sections 303D and 305B. The executive director's staff is here to present this item.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, I'm Kyle Gerton with the Water Quality Planning Division of the Office of Water. With me are Andrew Sullivan and Lori Hamilton, also of the Water Quality Planning Division, and Michael Parr with the Environmental Law Division. We're here today to request your consideration to adopt the second submission of the draft 2018 Integrated Report and supporting documentation. This report will be submitted to the EPA for approval as required by Federal Clean Water Act Sections 305B and 303D. The integrated report summarizes the degree to which water bodies support the uses and criteria in the Texas Surface Water Quality Standards. The report includes the 303D list of impaired waters that do not meet water quality standards. Development of management plans to improve water quality may be needed for water bodies on the 303D list. For the second submission of the draft 2018 integrated report, 1,080 water bodies were assessed. A total of 583 impairments are now included on the 303D list of impaired waters for 2018, compared to 574 impairments on the 2016 list. The TCEQ staff worked with stakeholders over the last year to develop the integrated report that is now being presented today. The Guidance Advisory Work Group met to discuss the methodology that was used to develop the integrated report. The second submission of the draft 2018 integrated report was released for public comment on May 31st, 2019, and the public comment period ended on July 1st, 2019. 4 comment letters were received. Staff prepared responses to those comments, which are included in your backup material. We respectfully request approval and the adoption of the second submission of the draft 2018 integrated report and your direction to submit to EPA. We also request permission to make additional non-substantive revisions if needed before submittal to EPA. Thank you for your consideration, and we are available for questions.
Thank you. I do have one. What's our understanding of the difference in the number of impaired waters identified between the 2016 report and this report?
The primary number of the main increase on impairments was for bacteria impairments.
And is this a matter of identifying conditions that had always been there? In other words, a better understanding of the state of the water courses, or that they are in fact degrading?
So there's a lot of different factors at play, and the water quality, each integrated report, we're looking at a different period of record. So it's hard to isolate exactly what the individual factors are, but we are looking at a snapshot of 7 years.
Great, appreciate that. Colleagues, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. OPIC.
OPIC recommends adoption of the second submission of the draft 2018 Texas Integrated Report as presented by the Executive Director.
I agree. I think we should go ahead and adopt this report. Any other thoughts or comments?
No, appreciate the work that went into it, or the second one.
Both,
Give a
yes,
motion,
both of
or-
them. Yeah. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Go ahead.
I would move that we approve issuance of the resolution that acknowledges, I would recommend that we adopt the second submission of the draft 2018 Texas Integrated Report for submittal to the United States Environmental Protection Agency as required by Clean Water Act Sections 303D and 305B as recommended by the Executive Director.
Second?
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Item number 5 is the consideration of gifts and donations of $500 or more in value to be given to the TCEQ, submitted for approval in accordance with Chapter 575 of the Texas Government Code concerning acceptance of gifts and donations by certain state agencies. The Executive Director's staff is here to present this item.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, my name is Yan Tran of the General Law Division, representing the Executive Director. Before you are the gifts and donations received by the agency in the past 90 days. In accordance with Chapter 575 of the Government Code, the Executive Director has accepted the gifts and respectfully requests your acknowledgement of these gifts. As always, I'm available to answer any questions you may have concerning these items.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
OPIC.
OPIC recommends approval of the resolution acknowledging acceptance of gifts and donations as presented by the Executive Director.
I agree. I think we should approve this resolution. I do want to thank HEB for their support of the Take Care of Texas program. That program is really important to communicating to all Texans that we're all stewards of our environment, and I really appreciate HEB's partnership in that.
I would agree. Great comment. And
Very much agree.
I'll make a
Ready
motion.
for a motion?
I move that we approve issuance of the resolution that acknowledges the Executive Director's acceptance of gifts and donations contained in the TCEQ Interoffice Memorandum to the Commissioners dated September 6, 2019, with the caption of docket number 2019-1226-MIS.
I would second that motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 The motion carries. Thank you.
That takes us to the enforcement docket, items 6 through 25. The Executive Director's staff is here to present these matters, and we have one person signed in on item number 10.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, my name is Janice Hernandez, and I am the Agenda Coordinator for the Litigation Division. With me today are Charmaine Backens, also of the Litigation Division, and Brian Sinclair and Melissa Cordell of the Enforcement Division, representing the Executive Director. Pending before you are items 6 through 25. The total assessed administrative penalties are $298,813, with $40,822 deferred, $55,900 applied towards supplemental environmental projects, and $202,091 to the general revenue. The Executive Director respectfully requests approval of these items, and we are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I have none at this time. Colleagues, any questions?
None.
No questions?
We have Mr. Lee signed in on item 10. Mr. Lee, I'll invite you to come up and give you an opportunity to speak with us this morning. And as an initial matter, let's see if the light is on your microphone so we can hear you.
It is.
Great. And then if you'll just state your name and affiliation for the record.
I'm Nicholas Lee. I'm here representing Lee Exceptional Investments. You have an order in front of you today that we're here to contest. We're going to ask that you not approve that order. I would like to take just a brief minute to point out that I would like to go into where the TCEQ has erred. I would like to point out first that I am a big fan of the TCEQ. I think you guys do a lot of good work, so I'm not here to bash or some of the stuff that we're going to point out. I just want to be as clear as I can be. And so one of the cases that I would like to point out is Ryan versus the state, which is a guy who was burning tires, pipe, and oil. I think that that is probably the reason that state agencies like this exist, so that those things don't happen. So I would like to briefly go into why you should deny this today. And the first one is that the TCEQ doesn't stand and have jurisdiction in this matter. That has been ruled by the appellate in Ryan versus the state, and it is clear in 382.018 B2B. So the fire that was in question was burning personal and private brush that was from my 5-acre property that had absolutely nothing to do with a landscape company. Because I own a landscape company that operates within that 5 acres in a metal building, they assumed that it was. The preliminary report that was filed with the TCEQ is unlawful because it is supposed to be backed by fact. It is supposed to have supporting facts, and the supporting facts in this matter would have to back the fact that this was not brush that was generated from my property and that there were other substances being burned in that fire. That is simply not true. The process that we have had and how we have gotten here, I would like to take a brief moment and explain to you how this has exactly happened. So I own a 5-acre piece of property. This piece of property has a small house on it. It has hunting land. It's wooded. And I built a shop on it a couple years ago. We've done a lot of land clearing. We're continuing to do that. We hope to build a house on that property one day. We are burning the fires that we push from that business. My landscape company does not, and I want to be as clear as I can be, burn its brush that it pulls in from its landscape company on that property. And it has not ever done so. So we call in every single one of these fires to the fire marshal. We report them before they're done. There was no difference in this fire. The only difference in this fire was that the fire marshal showed up. When she showed up to this fire, she assumed that it was part of my landscape company because that property housed a landscape company. I told her it was not. She said, we're going to have to put the fire out. And I said, why? Well, this is not brush from my landscape company. You can see, and you can see in the pictures of the report, that we have brush on trailers. If we would have had brush on trailers from my landscape company that was being pulled off, wouldn't it have been pulled off to be burned in the fire that was in question? This is two separate matters. One that has absolutely nothing to do with Exceptional Landscapes, both of which that are owned by me. There has never been any proof, evidence, or fact that any of this came from my landscape company, but I have been accused of it. And then those accusations have carried on to a point that we're here now. So after the fire marshal decided to put my fire out, and I asked her why, and she said, well, this is commercial brush. And I explained to her that it is not. She came back and said, oh, yeah, well, we've had some complaints on this fire. And I said, okay, well, who's complaining? And she said, well, we can't tell you that. I said, okay, let them put out the fire. She said, no worries, you're not in trouble. We're just going to put it out. Don't burn here anymore. I said, okay, that's fine. She left, and I filed an information request with the HR to find out who was complaining, because I felt as if she had lied. She did lie. She just straight up lied. And then when I filed my information request, the fire
You're speaking
marshal.
about the fire marshal?
Yes.
Yeah.
When I filed my information request, the head fire marshal of Granbury, Ray McGowan, called the TCEQ. They also informed many things that just weren't true, that they knew I was burning illegal brush. It's not true. Ray McGowan was recently fired for altering reports for insurance fraud and let go from that office. So the office itself shows to be dishonest. In the reports presented by the TCEQ and Heather Brister, she claims that she showed up to my property with the fire marshal, and the fire marshal walked around a gate to open this gate that is riddled with private property signs. The cameras that we have show that that is a lie. The affidavit that I brought today was from the gate installer that shows my gate has never even operated that way. So what we've had here is we have a preliminary report that in order to be made, it would have to be based on fact. And that fact would have to show somewhere that I was burning something on my property that wasn't natural vegetation or that had in some way come from my landscape company. There is no fact, there is no evidence, there is no proof, and I just stand here today hoping that you guys will put a stop to what the TCEQ's employees have been doing thus far.
Mr. Lee, I do have a couple questions for you. What was your understanding about brush that could be, or materials that could be or could not be burned on your property?
The material that was burned from that property was either grown on that property in buckets, which was part of my tree farm, or it was pushed, which is 99% of it, which was pushed from the property's fence lines into the clearing that we've been doing out there.
And I guess what my question is, we have a number of small businesses, and it's something that we struggle with as regulators who just don't understand the regulations, even sometimes that they're there at all. And I'm trying to understand how you came to appreciate and understand the regulations. Were you kind of aware of what they look like ahead of time, or was it?
This happened in August of 2018. I think that and I don't mean this arrogantly, I think I've studied the Clean Air Act more than any citizen in the state of Texas between then and now. So what it boils down to.
And that was after the fact, but what I'm getting at is, how did you know to separate the materials on your property before you burned them?
We knew that you weren't allowed to burn brush from the landscape company on that.
I appreciate that. The other question I had for you is about how your conversations with TCEQ went after you got a notice from the agency.
Please let me
go ahead.
Explain that one. So I get the fire marshal leaves, and then when she does, I file an information request. After that information request, then all of this started. I get a call from that fire marshal again, who says, Mr. Lee, and this is about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, says, Mr. Lee, I've got some information for you about the fires, and I'd like to stop by and give it to you. I said, well, I'm out of town. I live in Granbury. I was in Arlington. I said, I'm out of town right now. I'm sorry. I have a drop box at my gate. Please feel free to drop off any information that you had. Well, that wasn't what was really going on. What was really going on is they had contacted the office of the TCEQ, and the TCEQ had sent an employee, Heather Brister, down to meet with the fire marshal, and she was bringing Heather Brister to my property for further enforcement action, is what I'm assuming that was. So she says, okay, she'll drop it off, and then I get a phone call from Heather Brister while she's on my property. And I said to her on the phone, I said, who is this? She said she told me who she was. She said, oh, this fire is still burning. And I said, well, you can talk to the fire marshal about that. She just put it out. I mean, it's smoldering maybe, but she said, oh, that's not her fault. That's on you. You need to come back up here. I said, I'm sorry, I'm out of town. I can't do that. And she said, well, I'm looking around, and mulch, leaves, and grass that my landscape company brings in, we pile up. It makes small compost piles, medium-sized compost piles, and we let those rot until they're dirt, and we spread them, use them, do whatever we want to with them. She started questioning compost piles that we had leaves and mulch and grass piled up, and I said, what? I thought you were talking to me about a fire. What are you talking to me about this compost pile? I said, look, she went on to say she was going to inform this other division of the TCEQ, and I said, look, are you on my property? How did you get on my property? She said, let me quote her exactly. Yes, Mr. Lee, we have the authority to jump fences and cut chains, and I will come on your property as much as I want for as long as I want, and I will stay as long as I want until my investigation is complete. I said, really, that is amazing. Of course, I wasn't real sure at the time.
And Mr. Lee, let me interrupt you. What you're describing to me is really kind of the investigation process, and I think that after the investigator submitted her notes, that it initiated some form of enforcement process. So I'm imagining at some point you got a notice that there were potential violations at your property. So maybe we can fast forward to that part, and you can explain.
Let me get to that. So after that, I came home that evening and looked in and said, man, is this actually real? And I shot an email to her asking her to forward it to her boss, that said that that was the most unprofessional contact that I've ever had with a state employee in my life, and that I requested that they send someone else if they were going to send someone else, that I didn't want to deal with her anymore after that. So she didn't contact me or call me. She issued a report that said these lies, and she also said that we were burning mulch. But she had also contacted another agency and said we were composting mulch. She said she entered a property where we have her doing the exact opposite of what she says, and an affidavit here backing that she lied. So yeah, they started sending me stuff that said that I was doing all, here's your, so let's go to the second step. So the TCEQ has set up a specific system to combat this kind of wrong behavior.
Well, what I'd like to get to, Mr. Lee, is when did you receive notice that there were potential violations? So we had the investigation piece, and
That day,
at that point, you knew that that TCEQ had concerns about what was happening on your property. But at some point, did you get a written notice in the mail saying these are the violations that you're responsible for?
So that's what the next division of the TCEQ, which went to Tyler Richards. It was another guy, I can't recall his name right now. They issued a report asking for enforcement, okay? And I told them I wasn't going to deal with her anymore. So they shifted me to the next level up where all the facts are supposed to be checked, right? And I get a phone call, and I call this guy back. He never calls. A couple months pass. I get a call from Tyler Richards. Mr. Lee, unfortunately, this has just got to my desk. He doesn't work for us anymore, and I'm going to have to pass this on today unless you can send me information that would show me that you're innocent. What? And now I have to send what kind of information am I supposed to gather to send to you at this? Well, I'm sorry, I'm out of time, Mr. Lee. So the process number 2 that was in line that was supposed to stop this kind of thing from happening is openly admitted, and at least he was very honest about it. I don't have the time to look at this. So then he moved it on to Logan Harrell. Logan Harrell then produced this EDPRP, which is not based by fact. In order for that to be a valid preliminary report, there has to be a fact supporting that this was not natural vegetation brush. And so that's where I'm at. So
well, I appreciate all that, and thanks for visiting with us this morning. I'm going to check with my colleagues to see if y'all have any questions at this point. And really there are two concerns that I have, Mr. Lee. One is sort of the facts on the ground, the alleged violations, what the truth ultimately was there. The next one, though, is procedural. And if you don't defend your rights in the proper way, and now we're all the way at a default order, it's difficult to turn back the clock and take opportunities that may be missed to defend your rights.
Well, now, I'm not real sure that that's what's happened. So I was accused of things that weren't happening. I would like to add a couple more quick things. Granbury has a free dump that is within 3 miles of my property. So for me and my landscape company to bring brush to my property to off-haul it when it's free for us to drive it 3 miles down the road would be financially not common sense.
Got it.
So I just asked for y'all to take a look at the actual facts and hopefully deny this.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Lee. Colleagues, anything else at this point? Executive Director, I'd like to just kind of throw it open broadly to respond to what you've heard, certainly with respect to procedurally what happened, what efforts were made to notify and engage Mr. Lee to address this matter, and anything else that you heard that you want to respond to.
Thank you, Chairman. Charmaine Backens with the Litigation Division. Mr. Lee received the EDPRP, and he also received calls from Mr. Harrell, who is the staff attorney assigned to this matter. And in addition, we asked that OPIC, Sheldon Wayne, with Office of Public Interest Counsel, reached out to Mr. Lee to explain to him this process and what his rights were, and try to give him some guidance in that regard. So we're confident that he was aware of the process, and what we have here really is a difference of opinion about the facts, And so obviously, you know, when that difference of opinion exists, the proper venue for that is in a hearing before the State Office of Administrative Hearings, and he was offered that opportunity on more than one occasion and did not take us up on that.
I'd like 2 sentences. I would just like 2 sentences.
Mr. Lee, I'll give you one more chance to address us in just a moment, though. Colleagues, any additional thoughts or questions for the executive director at this point?
Are there written communications back and forth, or what kind of back and forth was there, I guess?
Good
is the
morning.
question.
Yeah, me and Mr. Lee exchanged a number of emails. After I'd filed the petition, I reached out to him. He had sent a letter in kind of explaining his argument. And I said, great, would you like me to then, because it wasn't filed with CCO or with SOA as part of his request for a hearing, I took that and asked him in an email, do you want me to file this as an answer for a request for a hearing, or what would you like to do from here? And he said he disagreed that a request for a hearing was necessary.
And that part is in emails in
yes,
writing? Yeah.
Yes. And then after that, yeah, he sent some other emails providing additional legal theories that he thought may preclude us having the case at all. And I attempted to address those, but also reiterated in each of the emails that the process is to go before an administrative law judge to discuss these issues. And then if not, a default order would be issued if he didn't want to request a hearing.
Thank you.
Colleagues, other questions? Just a few moments, Mr. Lee. I'll call you up, I promise.
That answered my.
Commissioner Lindley asked exactly the question I was most curious of.
Thank you. I think at this point we'll hear from OPIC, and maybe you can address the entirety of the docket and then come back to this item 10.
Yes, Chairman. Well, in general, OPIC does support issuance of all of these items, and I see Mr. Wayne's coming here, and if you have questions for him, you can, but I've been told that Sheldon did speak to Mr. Lee in June and advised him of his rights and advised him of the consequences of not filing an answer, that could result in a default order. I don't know if you have any other questions of us.
I think I do not. Commissioner Lindley?
No, thank you.
Janica?
That's helpful.
No questions.
Mr. Lee?
So there's 2 points that I would like to make, and then I'll sit down because they're either going to fall on deaf ears or you're going to try to listen to what I'm trying to say. 382.018 B2B says that the TCEQ does not have jurisdiction in matters where I'm burning personal brush on my personal property. That's all I was doing. In order for this to continue and this preliminary report to exist, there has to be a fact. They keep saying, as the ma'am did here, that there are all these facts. Let's point to one specific. Let's not say that there's emails and facts. Let's point to one specific fact that would give the TCEQ the jurisdiction in this matter, that these items were not. And then, with that fact, there could be a preliminary report issued. That's what I was asking for. I can't file an answer unless they give me the facts that I would actually need to file the answer. So, thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, any thoughts or comments at this point? And I'm ready to share mine.
No, not yet.
Commissioner Janica?
One brief comment, and just to say that I'm very sensitive to a lot of the issues that Mr. Lee is raising. I'm held up and really find more importance in the idea that our agency is very sensitive to process, and it's important that process is clear and consistent for everyone. So I feel that I'm a little constrained in where I'm going to come down today, but I think I have some really good questions that I'm going to be looking into personally as I'm continuing to familiarize myself with other programs of the agency that I may not have worked with closely in the past. But I think I'm coming down very closely with the two of you in terms of the questions you're asking.
Thank you, Commissioner Janica. And Mr. Lee, so here's how I see it. There's clearly a difference of opinion about what the facts are. And let me compliment you. You've been an excellent advocate for yourself. And the facts are an open question in my mind. I haven't researched, so I don't know what the legal authorities said, say specifically, the provision of the Clean Air Act that you cited, the Texas Clean Air Act. But assuming that the facts as you've described them are true, and that the law clearly states that that you're within your rights to let's just assume for the sake of argument that all that is true. We're at a point in the process where you have missed an opportunity, not your final opportunity, but your first opportunity to challenge this before the agency. And I understand that offer and education was made, it's documented. So I feel like the point that we're at right now, a default order on the verge of being entered, and I'm going to propose that we enter that, is what we need to do procedurally given where we are, including for some of the reasons that my colleague has just described about TCEQ being consistent in how it applies its procedure. We're not in a position where we can offer aggrieved parties an opportunity for a hearing, an administrative hearing at SOA, allow them to pass that opportunity and then come back and get another bite at the apple this late in the game. And it's not just about you, it's about the process that we need to go through at the agency. But
Is
yeah.
the process not that you should follow the law? I mean, does the law not mean anything here? I can show you exactly right here where it says that there is no jurisdiction.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I'm not going to engage in a back and forth at this point. Yeah, I think that we're headed towards a default order, but it may or may not be any comfort to you, but the wheels of justice grind finely and slowly, and there are additional opportunities for you to appeal this. So I'm going to propose to my colleagues that we do take a final action today, that we enter the default order as proposed. That is a final agency action that you can then take up and appeal. So I'm afraid that's where I come down, even though I am sympathetic to you. And again, I appreciate you coming down here and compliment you on your advocacy. Colleagues, anything else?
No, I think you said things very well, and I would be ready to move forward.
I'll entertain a motion.
If you'll give me a moment to find it, I'd love to make the motion.
Okay.
I move that we adopt items 6 through 25 as recommended today by the Executive Director.
Second?
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries.
Item number 26 is the consideration of the monthly enforcement report, and the Executive Director's staff is here to present the item.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. My name is Melissa Cordell of the Enforcement Division, and with me is Brian Sinclair of the Enforcement Division and Charmaine Backens and Janice Hernandez of the Litigation Division. We are here to present the monthly enforcement report for fiscal year 2019 through July. There are 1,174 effective administrative orders issued, and of those, 137 contain supplemental environmental projects. These orders assessed a total of $10,784,372 in penalties, with a payable amount of $6,800,317. $2,320,114 are to be paid towards supplemental environmental projects. 15,405 notices of violation have been issued through either our field offices or review of self-reported data in our central office, and 1,595 enforcement action referrals have been received. There are 1,648 pending administrative orders, with 117 cases that are on the backlog. 197 cases are pending at the Attorney General's office for representation in district court, and 28 judgments have been issued. 2,043 cases are being tracked for compliance. We have included for review a summary of OCE investigative activities for fiscal years 2017, 18, and 19. We are available to answer any questions you may have.
I have none. Colleagues, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Appreciate the report.
Mr. McWhirter.
Thank you for the report. I don't have any questions.
Thank you very much. No actions required on this item, so we'll go to the next.
That takes us to items 27 through 30, the quadrennial rule reviews for chapters 11, 314, 319, and 328 of the Texas Administrative Code, Title 30. The executive director's staff is here to present the items.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioner, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, my name is Patricia Duran from the General Law Division, and with me this morning is Kathy Humphreys from the Environmental Law Division, representing the Executive Director. Pending before you items 27 through 30, the adopted rules review of 30 TAC chapters 11, 314, 319, and 328. As required by Texas Government Code Section 2001.039, Executive Director staff conducted rules reviews of these chapters to determine if the need for the rules within these chapters continue to exist. The proposed notices of the reviews published in the April 26, 2019 issue of the Texas Register with the 30-day comment period. No comments are received during the public comment period for these reviews. Based on the review of these chapters, the Executive Director has determined that the reasons for the rules continue to exist. Additionally, in the course of these reviews, the Executive Director determined that 30 TAC Chapter 319.3 is obsolete. Section 319.3 applied to reporting procedures for permits issued prior to December 19, 1969, until reporting procedures could be developed and made publicly available. Because discharge monitoring reporting forms have since been developed and are now available for all permittees to report their effluent monitoring results, this section is obsolete and no longer needed. We respectfully recommend approval of the adoption of the rules reviews of 30 TAC Chapters 11, 314, 319, and 328. Additionally, staff requests authorization to make non-substantive revisions necessary to comply with Texas Register requirements. Thank you. Project managers and attorneys are available to answer any questions you may have on these projects.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions?
No questions?
None.
Mr. McWhirter.
OPIC recommends adoption of these reviews and readoption of these chapters as presented, recommended by the Executive Director.
I agree. I think we should go ahead and do so with instructions to remove the obsolete provision in Chapter 319 before the next quadrennial review, and I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I agree. I'll do a motion. I agree. I move that we adopt the rule reviews and readopt the rules in 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapters 11, 314, 319, and 328 without amendment, and direct the Executive Director to initiate a rulemaking to eliminate the obsolete section identified by the Executive Director in 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 319, before the next quadrennial rule review of that chapter.
I would second that motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you.
That brings us to items 31 through 34, which are for closed session. And the commission will meet today in closed session in Building E, Room 211S at 10:25, as permitted by the Open Meetings Act, including Texas Government Code Sections 551.071 and 551.074, to take up and consider matters pursuant to items number 31 through 34 as posted and noticed.
The time is 10:24. We stand in recess. Time's 11:05. We're back on the record after having met in executive session.
The commission met in Building E, Room 211S, for closed session from 10:25 a.m. until 11:04 a.m. on items number 31 through 34, as posted and noticed pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074. No action was taken.
The time is 11:06, and we are adjourned.